Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today, I'd like to talk about Nightmare Nights. We went to Nightmare Nights, me and Petterup. We were there. We saw some people. I'm going to talk about what we did there, but I'm going to start off with, I think, the more interesting topic, and that is that MA Larson was there at Nightmare Nights. We met a guy, his name's Steve, who looked like MA Larson, but that's not important. That's neither here nor there. I'll get to that. What is important is that MA Larson did an interview. Okay, I have to correct myself here. I thought that M.A. Larson did this interview at Nightmare Nights, but it turns out that Horse News just happened to use a picture that featured people who also went to Nightmare Nights. This interview was actually at BronyCon, but still, I read that interview and it got me thinking about stuff. And during the interview, he talked about the writing process for My Little Pony, compared to, back in Season 1 to how it is now. And it's interesting because I haven't really been too thrilled with Season 6. There's been a lot of episodes that I thought weren't very good. And some of them I thought were even very poorly written for, like, a kid's show. Like, there was not a lot of structural integrity. Like, there was just a lot of things that were kind of, like, not connected to anything. We're seeing, like Daniel Ingram is still writing music for the show, but for some reason the music for Season 6 was, like, nowhere near the level that we used to in previous seasons. And it's been weird. Because, for me, like, a lot of people just wanted to blame the writers. They're like, oh, this particular writer is the problem. Just fire this writer. And that's kind of how people get, is they want to look at the faces at the head of the projects, and they want to, get rid of this writer, fire him. People rant on Josh Haber, because Josh Haber has gone on the record as just being like, yeah, it's just a job to me, I don't really care. But M.A. Larson did this interview, and I've been thinking to myself for a while that it can't be the writers. I mean, like, not by themselves. It can't be the writers, because what I saw in Season 6 was a couple of, like, really, really safe script ideas, like really safe scripts, that still got screwed up somehow. And, like, one of them, for example, was the Christmas Carol thing. And the Christmas Carol was terrible, but it was super unremarkable. And then there was the Aesop one. There's an Aesop where basically a guy goes and he trades away his watch to buy combs for his wife, and then his wife trades her hair to buy a watch chain for her husband, and the moral of the story is don't do stupid things. Aesop, that's how Aesops always work. But that's like a super, super old story. The Christmas Carol is a very old story, the Aesop is a very old story. And the Christmas Carol one didn't get screwed up too bad, but the Gift of Maud, where they did that Aesop, man, that was just a mess. Like, that was all over the place. And the thing is, like, I don't think that you could survive as a professional writer if you could not successfully write an Aesop story. I mean, essentially all that is, that's an old story, and you're just putting a new spin on it. There should be no way to really screw that up. It should be virtually impossible. And yet they still really kind of screwed it up. So it can't just be the writers. Like, people, you're going to be, you're shaking your head and you're just going like, well, if the writer, like, what do you mean? Like, surely this proves that the writers are terrible. But what M.A. Larson explained was that back in the day when you used to write a script, when you used to do your outline and stuff like that, you would send it off and you would get like a response back, and you would get like maybe 1 or 2 notes or whatever. It was kind of like you sent it off to one person, that one person approved what you were doing. There wasn't really a whole lot of, there weren't really a lot of people leaning over your shoulder. But he explained that when he came back in later seasons, he would send things off for revisions, and basically people at management levels in multiple branches of Hasbro or DHX, and I can't remember exactly how he described it, but he made it sound like there were just a bunch of different people at management levels all trying to get changes in the episodes and trying to alter the way that the episode was going to work. He explained that, previously you would get like one thing, like he would say, here's my script, and he would get something back and he would say, all right, just be aware of this. And, he would make a small revision, it would be no big deal. But he says that in the later seasons, when he would submit a script or an outline, he would get 2 pages of notes back. Because they were all coming from a bunch of different people, and of course they weren't really, like, these people providing the notes weren't necessarily communicating with each other, so they were just a bunch of notes, like tons and tons of notes telling him to change all these things, and you'd wind up probably, I imagine, with a much more difficult job in front of you. He explained that the writing process takes about a month. You go through everything in about a month. And that makes sense to me. I've done, when I was trying to prepare to do Banana Republic, I remember writing a bunch of like 50-minute scripts. And honestly, I could see a month would be quite an adequate amount of time to write a script. Like there's no crunch there, there's no rush there. That's something that I think could be very doable for a professional. And so anyway, so what I think, my theory is that My Little Pony was too successful, and this is why it sucks now. I've heard stories about companies in the past, like more with manufacturing and stuff like this, but this apparently happens in a lot of different companies, where you'll get a successful project, like you'll get some widget that just basically sells itself. You know, you design something, it's a thing that everybody wants, you know, you barely have to do any marketing and everybody will just love it to death. You know, it's this thing, we're looking for this, it's this, you know, self-cleaning toilet or something like that, and everybody starts buying this toilet. And so as soon as you get a successful project like that, especially if you start promoting people that were involved in that project or giving bonuses for the people that were involved in that project, you'll find that everyone in the company who has the power to move or get involved with that project will then want to get involved in that project. In the context that it's been explained to me, usually it's marketers, I'm told, who want to get on that, because of course marketers want to sell a product that sells itself. Whereas if you have a product that's dying, that's suffering because it's not very good, the marketers kind of don't want to touch it. Because, you know, like if they can't move a thing, then the company will maybe think that they're not very good at their jobs and they might let them go. So you get this bit of behavior, and I've been told that if you're managing people, if you're in the upper levels, you have to be really careful and look out for that sort of behavior and understand what's going on. Because if you get a successful project and then you let all your managers and all your marketers and everybody in your company all descend on it so that they can be working on the successful project and get their promotions and get their bonuses and everything like that, pretty soon you'll have too many people trying to manage the project and you'll kill it. So I think this is maybe what's happened to My Little Pony, is that they had their first couple of seasons, and then all these managers and marketers and all these other levels, all these people in these companies realized that My Little Pony was a successful project. And now they're all involved in the process of creating My Little Pony, so they can put their name on it and say, like, I was involved with My Little Pony. Like, look at how successful this was. The ratings were fantastic. It was an internet phenomenon, and all this stuff. And they'll say these things. But the trouble is that, of course, if everybody wants to get involved, like managers, you know, they don't animate, they don't do art, they're not really doing anything. So they just get involved in one of the more straightforward things, the things that you can do. You know, if you graduated high school, you can write. You maybe can't write well, but you can at least like put your fingers to the keyboard and type some things out. So all the managers come down and they get involved in the writing. So like The Gift of Mod is one of the biggest reasons why I have this theory. There are a couple of other episodes that are just a little bit disjointed and not really well written. But The Gift of Mod is the one that really seals it for me, because it seems like The Gift of Mod spent the entire episode not really sure what they were doing or where they were going or why certain characters were involved. You know, I mean, like, Rarity was there, and they were like, oh man, if only we could find someone who could sew this bag. And it was like, oh yeah, like Rarity or whatever. But she was there just to, like, buy a shop or something like that. It was just some stupid, inconsequential thing that had no impact whatsoever on the episode. So, like that, it was just a complete mess. And it was an Aesop. So it shouldn't have been a dull script. Shouldn't have been a whole lot going on, but shouldn't have been... like, it shouldn't have been like a mess like it was. So I'm convinced that what must have happened is they probably submitted that script, and they're probably submitting scripts like Christmas Carol and the Aesops, because they've got like, you know, a dozen, 2 dozen or whatever managers all leaning over everyone's shoulders, and whenever they submit a script, if they try to do anything bold or adventurous, or if they try to express any amount of creative freedom, probably they get back, like, you know, 5 to 10 pages of notes or whatever. Like, I don't know how much like I said, MAS Larson described, he got 2 pages of notes on a script he tried to do, and suddenly you have to change everything. Like, the whole script doesn't work anymore. And so, like, maybe somebody, like, you know, 2 pages, that's, if you were to write that, if that was just like specifically dialogue, if they were writing like, you know, change this dialogue to this, that's at least like, you know, maybe under 2 minutes, or possibly, depending on what they're trying to change, a little over 2 minutes of episode. But if they're doing things like, please include Rarity, or please showcase X toy, or please do this, if you're getting 2 pages and they're telling you to like add characters or remove scenes, or like just like, I can only imagine like how much 2 pages of notes could alter or downright butcher a script. It's no wonder that season 6 wasn't doing very well. It's also no wonder that a lot of people have been leaving the project, like a lot of the old original writers, Jason Thiessen, Lauren Faust left early on, but she, I guess she left before it became a big successful thing. There's just this. I don't know. It all just kind of clicked. Like after I read that interview and he was like, yeah, like everyone's kind of dogpiling on the show now. It was just like, oh, okay, well. Suddenly this makes a whole lot of sense. This is also why I can see why some of the writers and staff involved with trying to make the show work are starting to get really snippy with people on Twitter and whatnot. Because you imagine at the office, you've got dozens of people telling you what to change and what to do and what's wrong and how you need to include this or you need this character or this is written wrong. And then you get people on the internet trying to do the exact same thing to you. And you can't tell your bosses to go to hell, but you can certainly tell the people on Twitter to go to hell. So, yeah, it all clicks and it all makes sense to me. And anyway, this is relevant because I'm doing a Pilaf. I'm going to do like a 3-part episode of Pilaf, where Pilaf talks about the Gift of Mod. Because the Gift of Mod, like I say, it's a mess. It's really badly written, and the thing that I throw in there when I talk about the Gift of Mod is like you may have liked the episode, but just as far as mechanical stuff goes, it's a catastrophe. I think. So. Yeah, so we're going to do some peel-off, and you'll get to see more of this, but this is kind of my theory. There's a lot of different reasons why they might be struggling, but man, if management is the cause for this, Pony's going to die. Like, My Little Pony is not going to be it's not going to hang in there, because management is terrible. When management starts to kill a project, that's like, you're dying at the head. Like, you're just, the head is killing the project. Like, you can't, if it were like Josh Haber, seriously, if it were seriously like Josh Haber, if you were just like, oh yes, Josh Haber is killing Pony, then you would just fire Josh Haber and the whole thing would be salvaged. But when it's the management, and it's a bunch of different branches that are in charge, that can exercise power to smother the project, there's really nothing you can do. Like, you would have to have someone very high up in Hasbro step in and, start getting involved, and there's no guarantee that someone higher up at Hasbro necessarily knows whose head needs to roll and whose head needs to stick around. So, yeah, it could be, if this is the case, very catastrophic for the show. Probably the days are numbered, and Season 7 may not be too great. But, yeah. Anyway, though, on a lighter note, though, Nightmare Nights. I went to Nightmare Nights. It was a lot of fun. Peterup and I set up a table. And what was interesting is that apparently, Peterup conducted most of setting this up, but he did so verbally or by email or something like that, where he was just like, yeah, so we're gonna do this, and we're gonna have a table, and we'll have a panel, and he got back these responses like, yeah, you'll be fine. And apparently, what we were supposed to do though is we were supposed to fill out some forms, and we did not do that. So one of the things that happened was our panel actually wasn't on the chart schedule, which was the schedule, of course, that everybody uses, because it's the schedule that comes up second. It's visual, which is much nicer for everybody. Everybody likes that one. You can see where everything is nice and easy. And plus it tells you, like, here's the room that's in, it's color-coded. Like, it's so much more convenient, the chart schedule. We weren't on the chart schedule. We were on the Google Docs schedule. We were on that. But we were not on the chart schedule. So a lot of people had no idea when our panel was. And we had people approaching us, in the 3 days that we were there, we had people approaching us. And they're like, did I already miss your panel? Like, has it happened yet? And I was like, no. Sunday, 1:30. 1:30, we're doing the panel. So everybody that came to the table, we told them, like, yes, Sunday, 1:30. Like, yeah, that's when it is. Super secret panel. And we made it a goal to tell that to everyone that we saw. Even people who didn't know who we were. It was like, oh, do you not know who we are? On Sunday at 1:30, we have a super secret panel where you can see what our work is like. So yes, that occurred. That was what we did throughout most of the panel. Also, too, we wound up outside the vendor hall for the same reason. We got our table we got a table. We were told we would get a table. But we wound up, directly outside the vendor hall. And I don't know if this is good or bad, because I haven't done, it might have been a good spot, it might have been a bad spot. I don't know. There were a lot of people who definitely, people were, lined up around the door to get into the vendor hall, and, weirdly, none of them, like very few of them were approaching us, even though we were like just sitting there outside the vendor hall, like clearly selling things before and a little after the hours sometimes that we were supposed to be selling. It was kind of like we just got set up and then people would approach us and they'd be like, oh, what is this? Like, you know, we had reasonable traffic. We broke even on this one. This is a smaller con than Babs. Babs, we did pretty well. For this one, I was a little worried that maybe the expenses were going to outweigh the costs. I didn't wind up... I don't know. We broke even, and that's the most important thing, at least, to doing these cons. So, yeah. I don't know if it was a good or bad spot. I've never been to like Nightmare Nights before, so I don't know how it's supposed to feel or how many sales I'm supposed to expect or any of that stuff. But we were sitting next to the cancer table. They were selling buttons to battle cancer. They were donating to charity. They were a charity table, and so these buttons, what they did is like if you had a button and you were wearing it, then a bunch of other vendors would take like $5 off of their vending thing. So yeah, we were next to them the whole time. Dusty Cat was also out there. He was selling like little plushes. They're like $40. We were kind of shocked by that. We were like, how much are those Dusty Cat plushes? Somebody was like $40 or $30 or something like that. We were like, man. It's like super reasonable. Dusty is selling like super reasonable plush prices. Man. If a Manly Brony, he's got like a mustache. Manly Brony mustache. Yeah. So anyway though, like on the first day, we had a couple of our fans show up. We had I think about four fans, Austin, Mike, Shy Cake, and Artisan Bubblegum were all there. And Artisan Bubblegum was with us at BabsCon. And Artisan just kind of hung out with us all con. We went and got dinner afterward. And we actually brought Artisan to our panel later on, and I'll get to that. But yeah, we brought Artisan to our panel. But when Shy Cake came in, what Artisan had done is he and Shy Cake had decided to split a hotel. And Artisan, for whatever reason, I think Artisan asked Shy Cake, like, how would you like to be paid? And I think, like, Shy Cake said, I don't know, however, whatever works for you. And so Artisan went to the bank and he exchanged a bunch of money for like gold coins. And then he gave Shy Cake like a sack of gold coins. So Shy Cake then came to our table and he bought some of our stuff and he just gave us the sack of gold coins. And he was like, here we are. This is not my problem any longer. And we were like, oh, great. Oh, good. So we were trying to make change throughout the con using these gold coins. And we told people they were bits. It's a theme. It's in theme. But yes, these horrible gold coins that got passed around the con and everything like that. It's such an inconvenient form of money. Gold coins. But yeah, on the first night we went to a horse news party, and the horse news guys are a lot of fun. They're kind of a rowdy group, or can be. It was fairly reasonable that first night. The second night got shut down, I think, because they had noise complaints. The first night was more low key. The second night was like was a little bit more over the top. I actually didn't go to the second night because I went to the first night, and Petterup was like, give me the strongest thing you have, and they were like, okay, and so they gave him a really strong drink, and then I think the guy who wrote My Little Dashie was there, and I think he was the one who gave Petterup just like a bottle of absinthe. And so I was just watching Petterup, like he finished off his drink, and then he was just like nursing this bottle of absinthe for the rest of the night. And at around 10 o'clock, I think, we got shooed out of the room, and we were all drunk, and we went down to the drama panel, where they talked about drama and things that have happened recently. They talked about Final Draft, of course, and they talked about people who would set up auto blockers. I didn't realize this, but apparently if you follow Horse News, you get automatically blocked by certain personalities on Twitter. And I follow Horse News. I was told to follow everybody that I recognize, even if they don't do anything. So I follow Horse News, which means that I'm probably automatically blocked by a couple of people. I don't know, Twitter, weird culture. But yes, they talked about that. They talked about Melluminous harassing Jim Miller until Jim Miller told him to go to hell. Melluminous told me he was like 15 during when I was talking to him. He's like, yeah, I'm like 15. I believed him, but they were like, no, he's an adult. He's 21 or something like that. He's in his 20s, early 20s. And then yeah, Melluminous not a 15-year-old. Getting in trouble with people. They were like categories. They were given categories, and I think that the reason why Millennius came up was because show staff was involved, and whenever show staff gets involved, they were like, that's category 5. So whatever it is that's going on with the show staff, that's high category stuff. And of course that makes sense in the context of these guys. Like Horse News goes to all the cons, and the con heads really care about that stuff, because if the show staff gets frustrated, I mean, you've got a problem. They don't want to be involved with the fandom anymore. They start to cut themselves off. I mean, if you think about it, that whole thing with Millennius, like, kind of sucks because Jim Miller wound up making his Twitter private. And so you get less, I mean, like, this is the thing. This is the consequence of when this kind of stuff happens, is that you get less access to the people that make the show and things like that. And it's really not good. So, they rated that category 5, but they also talked about Final Draft, who was also category 5. Apparently on multiple occasions, they talked about something that he did, that, like he told Andrea Libman that, she wasn't available for an interview or something like that at BabsCon, so he told her that he was not going to support her documentary that she worked on, and this really, really upset her, and apparently that was, I think that was when cons finally dropped him, because... like I say, it's like one of those things. Like, if you imagine, like you want the show staff to be interactive with the fandom, so you can't be like, well, that's all right. We'll just stop inviting the show staff, and we'll make sure that Final Draft is still here, but the show staff will stay home. You really can't do that. You have to start excluding the people who are causing the trouble. So apparently that was how Final Draft got bumped off of the con circuit. But I got to hear from Bob. We were hecklers in the audience because we were drunk. I was involved. I was shouting things. I was involved. We got to see Bob, or Rob, or just the guy with the fantastic beard. He runs the con. The guy's got like an amazing beard, and he seemed pretty sharp. He seemed pretty savvy. He was up on like tax codes, legal stuff, all kinds of things. And so we talked a little bit about some of the politics involved. They were very careful, because it was like those things when you get into like drama, they get in that like, oh, I cannot confirm or deny. But like when they got into like, so why is this person banned from the con? They could be like, well, we got to do this, and these are the pragmatic reasons why we got to do this. So it's funny. They had a sense of humor about it. But like I say, seems like a very savvy guy. I'm told Nightmare Nights is very tightly run, very efficiently run. So that was the first night. I went home and fell asleep, and when I woke up, I had a little bit of a hangover, but not so bad that, a little bit of ibuprofen cleared it on up, no problems, whatever. But Peterup went to bed just trashed, I think, because the next morning he woke up and he went down to go to breakfast, and he's like, oh, I'm going to get breakfast, I'll see you, I'll see you down there. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I kind of like sluggishly got ready, and I went down there, and Peterup had like his head down on the desk, like on the table. He had an apple in his hand, and I think like some milk or something like that. He was going to try to eat cereal, but it just wasn't happening. He was just like awful hangover. And so then he went back up to the hotel room and barfed. So man, just terrible. So until the afternoon, about like he just hung around, and he slept it off and tried to get some food down himself for the first part of the second day. And by the afternoon, he was feeling well enough that he was able to come out and help me man the table. And it was kind of funny, because like the first morning, or that morning, we didn't have a whole lot of sales initially. We had a couple. I mean, we sold a few things, but when I went to go take my lunch break, sales suddenly like picked way up. So it was kind of funny, because I came back and the charity table was like, yeah, how are things going for you? And I was like, oh, no, let me see. Way better since I left. So I was a curse for a while there. I was doing a bad job. I don't know if I looked tired and hungover. Like maybe I was just sitting there like looking like I'm not happy to see you. I try to have energy when I do these things. But Claudia was asking me this. She's like, how come you never smile? And I was like, do I not? And she's like, no, I don't know. You're always just so serious all the time. And I was like, oh, I don't feel serious all the time. So maybe I was sitting there looking a lot more serious than I realized. I wasn't feeling serious, but I certainly might have looked it. But anyway, though, yeah, just me by myself. I didn't have a whole lot of sales, but then Peterup took over. Sales picked up all of a sudden. So yes. That second day, I mean, we did some things. We went to some dinner. I spent most of the time kind of just sitting around at the table. But that second day, though, I was too worn out, and I didn't really want to go to the party. There was a second party, and I think Peterup went to it just to have like a beer or something like that. He was gonna drink a little bit more. Like I am stunned by that. I cannot, like when I wake up with a really bad hangover, I'm just like done. Like I can't do it again. But Peterup gave it a shot, so he went down to the horse news party, and that second one, that's the one that got shut down. Also, yeah, we hung out with a couple guys. Some of our fans came by, and we were like, oh yeah, there's gonna be a party. Some of our supporters on Patreon, and I was like, oh yeah, there's gonna be a party. So we invited them. Got to talk to a couple of guys. One of our fans was like an Air Force guy, and so we talked to him about being on board like the those big carrier planes, and he's gonna be on an AWAC soon and stuff like that. So he was just telling us about the life in a plane, and things like that. I believe he ran off with a lady that night. People apparently do get picked up at the pony cons. It occurs. Of course, he's like he's a tall guy. He's in good reasonable shape. There's lots of nerdiness at those things, but they seem like nice girls. I don't know. I didn't get to talk to them a whole lot. I met them only after I'd been drinking, really, and then after that, I talked to the girl's friend, and I was like, it seemed like Mike was interested in your friend, and she was like, yeah, they didn't come back to the room. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, that's okay. So yes, this occurred, and then finally on the third day, we had our con. We had the convention, and also too, before we had, or not a convention. I mean, the whole convention was a convention. On the third day, we had our panel. But before we had the panel, this was actually kind of cool. Sipsy and Mando sat down next to me, and it took me a long time to realize who they were. Like, I did it with both of them. Like, first Sipsy sat next to me for a while, and I looked at her, and I was like, that looks a lot like Sipsy. But I'd already been fooled once during the con, because at one point, like, Artisan Bubblegum was joking, and he was like, I really kind of want to go get an autograph from M.A. Larson, but I want to ask him to, apologize for Alicorn Twilight when he signs my autograph. Like, I wanted to say, Dear Artisan Bubblegum, I'm so sorry for Princess Twilight. Sincerely, M.A. Larson. And we were kind of joking about that. We were like, I don't know, like, how do you suppose he would respond to that kind of request? Like, probably in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way. I mean, I'm sure he's heard that before. But this guy leaned over and he goes, hey, you talking about me? And we were a little surprised because the guy looked a lot like M.A. Larson, and we were like, oh, shoot. And I lean over to Peterup, is like, is that M.A. Larson? And he gets up on his phone and he looks up a picture of like M.A. Larson, and sure enough, it was like, oh shit, that's actually M.A. Larson. Like, I think we were just like talking down on M.A. Larson, and he was standing right there next to us. Oh man, like, well, we look stupid. And then it turned out, though, that he wasn't M.A. Larson. He was just a guy who looks insanely similar to M.A. Larson, and his name was Steve. And Steve was a really nice guy. We started talking to Steve. You know, this was, I think, the second day that we met Steve, and so we were just talking to Steve. Steve was a nice guy. It was pretty cool. He was telling me, there's a picture, actually. I think Horse News has a picture of Steve, like, standing behind M.A. Larson. And it's just super weird. Like I say, it's if you didn't know M.A. Larson personally, you could easily be fooled into thinking that Steve was M.A. Larson. So we felt really bad at first. We were just joking. Like, we didn't really want M.A. Larson to apologize. It's just like, we're like, oh, shoot. Sorry about that. And he's like, oh, I'm not really M.A. Larson. And we're like, oh, okay. So we started talking to him, and he was just like, yeah, I'm more like an impersonator. I mean, not really. I don't know if he was intentionally impersonating M.A. Larson. Or no, well, he was. That's right. His name tag said N.A. Larson, not applicable Larson. So he was. But, yeah, that was amusing. So anyway, though, Sipsy, the storyboard artist for My Little Pony, and Mando Pony sat down next to me at the charity table. They were helping out with the charity stuff for a while. And when Sipsy came by, I looked at it and I was like, yeah, that looks a lot like Sipsy. But I'm not going to be fooled again. This is just a person that looks like Sipsy. And then later on, she asked me if she could borrow a Sharpie. And then I was like, are you Sipsy? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, you look like Sipsy. And then I tried to play it cool, because I didn't, I don't know Sipsy. It's really weird. Like, I've seen her on Twitter, and, I've followed their little Mando Fire Tumblr thing, which was really cute for a while. And you get this kind of, weirdness, where it's like, oh, I recognize you, and I follow things that you say, but I don't really, know you, and you probably don't know who I am at all, so I just tried to, be cool. I was just like, oh, yeah, oh, okay, Sipsy. Yeah, here's a pen. and I don't know if I successfully played it cool, because I didn't know what exactly I was trying to convey, other than that I wasn't gonna spurg out or anything. So I didn't really talk to her. I let her borrow a pen, and she goes, I don't want to steal your pens, and I was like, oh, we've got two. It's fine. So Sipsy, she was doing some things. She was signing some stuff, helping out with the charity deal, and Mando Pony was there too. And I only realized that it was Mando because at one point, like, he was doing the hover hand thing over Sipsy, and I was like, oh, that's like a really familiar kind of thing to be doing to somebody. And then it occurred to me, I was like, oh, that's probably Mando Pony, because they're married. And then sure enough, like, I got a better look at him later on, and it was, yep, that's Mando Pony. That's Mando Pony. So yeah, so I was like sitting next to them for a while, I think like an hour or something like that. And after I realized it was them, I was trying, like, as people came to the table, I was trying to, like, direct people over to them. I was like, hey, yeah, like, if you want to donate to cancer, that's Sipsy over there. She'll probably sign your button if you do that. And but by the time that I realized that it was Sipsy and Mando Pony, it was like too late. They got up not very long after I figured out that's who they were. So I couldn't be like, oh, that's Sipsy over there. Do you know Sipsy? Do you want her to sign your button? Just go buy a cancer button, and just Sipsy will probably sign it if you ask her. She seems nice. Yeah. So that happened. So anyway, though, we finally did the panel, and what happened is we brought Artisan Bubblegum with us, and Artisan asked us, he goes, do you guys mind if I come with you to the panel? And what he meant was, like, could he walk with us on our way to the panel? Like, he was just going to come with us and maybe help us set up. And we were like, yeah, sure, you can be on the panel. So we brought Artisan in, and we sat him down in the middle. So he's like had the most important position, of course. And when the panel started, we introduced him as the world famous Artisan Bubblegum. And we were like, please applaud for the world famous Artisan Bubblegum. We all know exactly who he is. And so we got a round of applause for Artisan Bubblegum. And then we did our thing. We had an episode of Peel Off, and this thing with Peel Off was actually kind of cool, because I was talking about, like, oh man, wouldn't it be good if I had, like, Peel Off to show off at the con? And so Norman Rengel, like, I was just talking about this, and I didn't think that it was actually going to happen. And Norman Rengel was like, yeah, that would be cool. I'll get right on it. And so he got himself Copy Pastas and Nova King, and they just went to work, and they divided the project up into thirds, and they animated it out, which was great because it got it done in a presentable fashion, but also interesting because the three of them have different animation styles. Like PBN. Norman Rengel, he goes by a couple of different screen names. Norman Rengel, which is how we've been crediting him on things. Norman Rengel, he had a more kind of bouncy sort of squash and stretch sort of style, and so you could see that through the whole first thing. And then Copy has kind of been learning to animate around at the same time I was, so her style is a little bit more similar to what I would do. She was less inclined to make the character jump around and move, because that takes a lot more effort, and you need to be, to be able to do that comfortably, you need to be able to be fast and kind of know where you're going, where you're going to end. It takes a little bit more boldness, a little bit more comfort with the program and everything like that. So the middle part is a little more, it's Peel Off. It's kind of what I would have done with Peel Off. And then the third part is Nova King, and then Nova King was nice and good fluid animation, less cartoony, less bouncy, less squash and stretch, but still but very active. Like you'll see once I finish the thing. Good job on all that. So. Yes, we got through all that, and so I made the joke. I was like, yes, like, they did all the work. I am now a true analyst. Of course, the joke being on me, because it turns out that I although a lot of the animation was done, I need to go back and, like, still do a whole bunch of stuff. So for the next couple of days, I'm going to be finishing off Peel Off, drawing the sketches, and maybe just doing a little bit of touch-up animation here and there, like. There's not a lot of things that need to be done with the animation. It's basically done. Product is basically done. But on that note, though, speaking of those guys that helped us, I made the joke, like, oh, now I'm a true analyst, because there's the Kim Possible drama where it was like, oh, everybody does all the work and then she doesn't compensate them or anything. I do try to compensate the people I work with. So on that note, if you'd like to support us on Patreon, like 1,000 views on YouTube is worth like $1. So if you donate even $1 to us for like one video, you are worth at least 1,000 viewers on YouTube. So so this is my push for that. Please support us on Patreon. The money goes to the team, or as well as it can. In any case, we can get more stuff done. We can do things. We do things. Help us out. But that got done to at least a presentable fashion. I'm finishing it off now. It'll be online soonish, as soon as I get done with it, maybe in a couple of days. And overall, we got a lot of laughs, had a good time. On the last night, Pederup went to yet a third horse news party. Apparently there was a party all 3 nights. And I wound up not going to that one. I didn't even know there was a party on the third night. Pederup just went out for a walk, and then later on he contacted me, and he was like, I am not dead, I'm at the horse news party. And I was like, oh, well, okay, all right, I'm gonna go to bed. I'll see you tomorrow morning. So yes. Oh, also too, while we were at dinner, Pederup parked near like a light post, and this was awful. When he was pulling out, he pulled out a little too sharp, and he banged his car on this light post. So just I don't know if he's gonna have to do body work or whatever, but it looked kind of nasty. Man, that was too bad. But that happened. That was an event for the con. But anyway, though, we met a lot of people. It was a lot of fun. Shook a lot of hands. Signed things. Sat next to Sibsy. It was pretty cool. It was a good deal. They asked us during the panel, like, would we maybe do more of the panel, the con circuit? And I guess as long as the cons are kind of running, and as long as we can, like, do them without them being too expensive, like as long as we can continue to break even on the trips, that's totally a thing that we can be doing. In fact, I believe that we just recently got confirmed that we're going to, not BronyCon, but it's like a New York, but I can't remember exactly what it is. I have to double check, but it's in New Jersey, and it's going to be in January. So I think we're going to that. I'll make an official statement about it when I know for sure. But yeah, Nightmare Nights. It was a good time. Had a good time. Met a lot of people. Met Steve Larson. Not his last name. Not really Larson. Met Sibsy. She seemed really nice. I met Mando. I didn't meet Mando. I sat next to Mando. He didn't say anything to me. But he was there. MA Larson was there somewhere. I didn't actually see the real MA Larson. I just saw Steve. Yeah. But anyway, though, I suppose that'll be it for now. So thanks for joining me, everybody. I will catch you all next time.